followed by Bennett Conley and Mike Barber.
Bronco, it's been a while since you've had a full week to prepare for a game, and this week you actually have a couple extra days. What does the additional time allow you to do?
Rest, recover, heal, mentally and physically. It's been, a taxing season so far, really rapid pace going from a Friday to a Thursday. And so I think everybody on the way home from Miami was just so thankful. And it really felt, it was hard to get the days right. It felt like the day after Miami was Sunday, but it wasn't. It was Friday, and then it felt like the next day was Sunday, but it wasn't. It was Saturday, and then it felt like Sunday was Monday, but it really wasn't. It was Sunday. So, it's just good to be recalibrated, and it doesn't mean everything is magically now fixed and healed in terms of body parts or anything else, but it was the rest came at the right time.
Were you able to get ahead?
This meeting is being recorded.
On your prep as a player?
I couldn't hear that. Could you say that again, Jeff?
Were you able to get a head start a little bit over the weekend, players in preparation?
The coaches were able to get a head start. Players-wise, we really allowed them to rest and recover. And, I'm sure they were on their iPads and watching game film and all that. But we didn't insert the plan earlier. We didn't do extra meetings with our players. We really allowed Saturday to be a normal Saturday, as if we played on a Friday, I guess is the best way to say that. So Saturday was basically a Monday. And so we're one day ahead, but the players don't know the plans yet, and so we're not any farther ahead that way, but the coaches are farther ahead.
You mentioned the North Carolina game exposing some weaknesses. I was curious over the last couple games if you've been pleased with how the defense, I guess specifically, has kind of addressed some of those problem areas.
Yeah, we're addressing, and I see us just chipping away at it. There's clear progress being made everywhere from that point of reference. And I think it's also clear, what teams we're playing and what their identities look like as we get to games 5 and 6, and it kind of starts to put things in a little bit more perspective of how glaring are the weaknesses, or is that just what they do against anybody? So the picture's becoming clearer. But back to your first question, I think we're chipping away at, addressing, working on, and it's showing yield. We need to add consistency to it, but I see it happening, yes. From not only the Miami game, but the Wake Forest game, I saw progress in both.
I wanted to ask about Josh Hayes, the transfer corner. It seemed like he had a pretty good workload for Carolina and Wake. I thought I saw less of him against Miami. I could be wrong. Where is he at, and what has his what is bringing him along been like?
Yeah, it's great. We want him to play as much as we can get him to play through his preparation, and that was the plan against Miami, and he played well while he was in. He gave up one 50-50 ball, if you remember, kind of down the sideline, really in good position. And so he's battling to start every week. Practice really matters for us, and so he's going head-to-head with Fentrell Cypress. And really, each week's practice determines who goes out to start the game. So that's where he is.
Your secondary, it felt like, took maybe a step back against Carolina in terms of giving up those explosive plays that you had talked so much in the offseason about. Wake Forest, while they moved the ball, they didn't have as many of those big plays. And in the Miami game, are you happy with kind of where you've gotten to in limiting big plays?
Yeah, we're making real progress in relation to a year ago, and it has been targeted. We're not perfect yet, and you still see an assignment mistake or two, especially if it's at a critical time, right? And we had one of those in the Miami game where we had an assignment mistake, but yeah, we're chipping away at it. Back to like Bennett's question, it just is, you can feel it happening. It's not perfect yet, but I see progress, and it's real.
Next, we'll go to Preston and Jackie, and just as a reminder for everyone, if you have a question, use the raise hand option.
Bronco, coming back after that Miami game, just how would you describe the mood on the plane and the ride back? I know everyone's probably tired, getting back that late, but and then just kind of coming into this week, because I know you've talked about how much urgency you've wanted this team to have. Does that drop off after a win, or do you want it to keep picking up?
No, it doesn't drop off. And in terms of describing the mood, gratified, I would say. There's nothing in terms of stepping back or reflecting, just gratification. And right, the profession that I'm in, maybe that a lot of people are in, just not quite as visible, right? Man, small differences lead to large impact. And, a ball bouncing off a post after a hard-fought game is a completely different result than it going through. And our team, man, they held together and they battled and they held together and they battled. They encouraged one another and they held together and they battled. And to have a tangible result on the road, and our first win in the Orange Bowl, or not the Orange Bowl, whatever the name of the field is now. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's great. ACC wins on the road are hard to come by, and so just lots of things that we were grateful for and anxious to do again. So yeah, urgency is not affected. If anything, it's enhanced.
And then the workload for Keaton, I know he's got the cast and everything, but how impressed have you been just what he's kind of just his determination out there on the field? It's just like nothing seems to stop this guy, whether it's a position change or an injury.
Yeah, Keaton, he can do anything, and he knows he can do anything in a humble way. And he's so optimistic and so positive and so passionate. Am I lucky that he's at UVA, and I'm so lucky to be his coach. He is just someone I can't wait to see every day. There's always a smile. There's always something we can do. There's always just a word of encouragement for anyone in the program, and then he backs it up with how he plays. And it just is, I'm learning a lot by watching just a remarkable young person.
And kind of following a little bit on that, Thompson seems to be a guy who's not afraid to do the dirty work that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. A guy who's like that on the defense is Nick Jackson. When I looked through some of the plays in the game against Miami, one of them that stood out to me was when he pulled the Miami center, which allowed the Hunter Stewart to get a sack. There are a lot of times where it looks like Jackson can get the sack, but instead keeps to his assignment, which allows his other players around him to make those plays. How great is seeing a guy like Jackson develop that game like that?
Yeah, it really, I would say it goes beyond that and kind of reflective of what we were talking about with Keaton. It's team first. And yeah, today's, maybe all eras, right? We're all self-centered to some level, and we think about our own goals, our own priorities, our own whatever. Football's a team game, and the role that you play on any given assignment is for the team. And yeah, I think both Nick and Keaton grasp and understand that really well.
And a second question is, when you look back at film at that second half on that defense, how much of some of the struggles, or I guess some missed assignments, were due to more about what Miami's second half adjustments were more than what UVA was doing, like their up-tempo defense? Yeah,
not much. It was very similar. The biggest difference in the second half, the short field after the interception, and yeah, one assignment mistake in coverage, and otherwise it would have looked a lot like the first half. So what seemed to be big really was small after re-looking at it. And yeah, we had them to third down after the turnover, and yeah, about 6 inches was a difference of an incomplete and a complete, and then we blew a coverage. Other than that, it would have been very similar.
Next, we'll go to Damon and Jerry.
Bronco, the past couple of weeks you keep mentioning about issues coming up defensively at those critical times, third downs, big spots like that. How is that just a challenge of simulating those kinds of scenarios in practice, or how do you get better at those?
Yeah.
For lack of a better way of putting it.
Really just what you said, through emphasis, right? Each and every game. And again, my job is to always be in advance of, and I wish I was perfect at that. And I've never predicted for sure how we're going to play or what the opponent has success with or not. I try as hard as I can to do that in terms of our processes. But after each game, right, the sample size grows and it becomes clearer where we might need attention. And so in this past game, what became clear is, right, we led the game from beginning to end. And so playing from in front, from beginning to end, and then, right, as teams are becoming more desperate to score, then making sure that we're aware of the down and the distance and the situation and where the sticks are. And so just contextual football, I think, is the answer, right? And those are things we'll have to simulate more in practice as we expose areas that maybe I overestimated where we were. Oh, we're good in that. Oh, wait, no, I just watched it. No, we're not. And, so sometimes the threshold, I think, is that needs to be met is met in practice. And then I see it in the game and, oh, no, we're not quite there yet. And that would be one of those not quite there yet.
Bronco, how much does Malik Cunningham remind you of his father, and just how dangerous do you think he is as a threat quarterback?
On a scale of whatever dangerousnesses there are, I would put him at the top of the dangerous scale in terms of how fast, how athletic. He can pull it down and run on any given play. I'm just really impressed with him. I think he's a really good athlete. I think his throwing accuracy and precision has improved, and right on any given play, he's a threat. And so, it doesn't take much to remind me from a year ago where we had a really hard time getting him on the ground or tackling him. And so, he's a really good football player and in a scheme that's uses him really well.
All right, we'll go back up to Jeff White in a minute.
Bronco, Brennan was not happy after the game with his performance, and he thought the offense overall could have been more efficient and more productive. After you looked at the tape, what were your thoughts on the way the offense played?
First, it's, how refreshing, to win that kind of game and to battle and all that, and then have your quarterback, right? The very first thing he's thinking about is how to improve. And so, he was upset about his interception, came right to me after the game and said, that one's on me. And I don't have to say a thing, which is so remarkable and so refreshing, right, that there's that kind of accountability. But we played over 50 plays offensively in the first half. Defensively, we had lots and lots of 3-and-outs and getting the ball back. And, right, the points per play, I think he would have expected to be higher. We all would have. Give Miami credit, right? It's not like they're not skilled and don't have good players and good coaches. But with the opportunities in relation to the points, I think that's probably what Brennan was referring to, and knows that we can play better, and especially in the second half when we needed to. We had so many chances, Jeff. No, we had chances to separate in that game, both offensively and defensively, but our own lack of execution or mistakes kept, and to Miami's credit, right, kept them fighting back, and just always we struggled to pull away, and we didn't execute well enough on either side to pull away, which tells you where we are, but also tells you where Miami is, right? And so it's not just one-sided, and my guess is all of that contextually is what he was talking about.
Joe Comer's jersey selection a couple weeks ago was something that was on social media. I think he did a backflip. I was curious what you can tell us about Joe in terms of how he got to UVA and what he brings to the program as well.
Yeah, that how he got here was one of those. We know AJ was arriving right from Louisville, and I didn't know early on that Joe was coming as well. But he's coming as a graduate student and paying for his own grad school, and just unselfish in every way. And he works so hard and is capable and is just a bright spot. Those two kids, just AJ and Joe, they kind of come as a team, like a superhero tandem, right? They travel together, and they're just always smiling or laughing or elbowing one another, or there's some side dialogue happening and giggling, and they're just fun to be around. And he sacrificed a lot to be here, and he's thankful and grateful to be here. And I think that's not only why he reacted so passionately about his jersey, but the team as well. He's one of the favorite players on our team, just because of what he gives.
Mike Barber, untrusted.
When you have a quarterback that you're opposing, like Cunningham, with that dual threat ability, and I know it stresses the whole defense, but is there one particular position group in particular that they got to be coached a little differently when a quarterback has that skill set?
I'd love to say it's just one, but it's really the entire 11 because they're all interrelated. You can't just say the defensive line, you have him, because there's not a matchup that's in our favor, right, athletically. And you can't say, okay, you one linebacker, you have him, because in space, right, there's not a matchup that really is in our favor or anyone else's, right? And then secondary-wise, they have to know that their coverage will be longer, and what we call plaster, because routes convert and routes adjust as a quarterback's harder to get on the ground. And he's a run threat, not only designed run threat, but creative, or creates on his own, which means there's a great chance he'll still have the ball and you're tackling in the open field after you've already covered downfield, right? So it really affects everyone, which just means the plays extend, right? So you play defense longer when a quarterback is as athletic as Louisville's quarterback.
And a week ago, some of the players mentioned that they were seeing more of you around the defensive side of the ball and at practice. Was that true, or were you just more vocal maybe? And if it was true, will you be doing that again this week?
You know, I'm not sure I was more vocal or more around, but yeah, it could or could not be true, I guess. I just like our team. No, I love our team, and I want to help wherever I can in any way that I can, and I move and I adjust and I'm intuitive as to where and how I can possibly make a difference or spread influence, and yeah, that's what I'll continue to do.
Thank you.
I think Brennan talked a little bit about going into Miami, knowing the opportunity to run the ball would be there, and then y'all kind of established that early on. You know, is it more at this point with the run game just looking for that opportunity to get that going early?
It is. I really like Mike Hollins and Wayne Talapapa and Keaton in the run game, and Devin Darrington, right? All of those, and we've used Ronnie Walker as well in different, but we're capable in the run game. So much of it now is what is the defense doing? What does the run game yards and opportunities look like, and how's the game being managed, and really how does it fit? So all of those things in the Miami game, it just was. I love seeing our running backs run. They're physical, they're tough, they're always falling forward, they're fighting for extra yards, and so it adds a dimension to our offense when people are playing coverage first. That makes them, holds them accountable, right, to the chains being moved, and that's necessary.
And then real quick, I know you didn't have an update last Thursday, but anything on Jelani Woods or Justin Dunkel, Adib Atariwell, or Devontae Cross, where they're at?
Devontae Cross is the only one I have an update on, and he was battling personal issues and family issues that are private. He's back with the team. There was nothing disciplinary-wise or violations or anything like that. It was just a personal matter with his family that he was working through, as so many of us have and need our attention sometimes. The other three regarding injuries, I don't have any update at this point, and yeah, probably won't until Thursday. That seems to be kind of when I have the clearest idea as to when and if and how guys might play.
David Dillman, go ahead.
Bronco, what have you seen from kind of the changes you've made on the left side of the offensive line, especially now that Haskins is healthy again, and just getting him more involved and maybe shuffling Nelson over to guard?
Yeah, really have liked Ryan Nelson at guard. That seems to be a natural and effective position for him, so I've liked that a lot. Jonathan Leach actually started at tackle, but as I was reviewing film with the team, and I do that, right, where I'm kind of talking about all positions and all things in front of the entire team, it didn't take long on offense where Haskins kept showing up, and blocking really well and playing through the whistle and just performing in a way that we knew he could, but has been a little bit hampered by injury. And so I really liked what I saw when Haskins and Nelson were in at the same time in those stretches on Thursday, against Miami. And so, yeah, that gives us more depth and more flexibility. And it'll be needed, right? We're just going into Game 6, and so it just helps our depth.
Just to follow up on that quickly, obviously Haskins and Nelson was the left side of the line 2 years ago, the Coastal Division team. How much does that experience of those two guys playing next to each other help that whole situation?
Yeah, it helps tremendously, right? There's chemistry that's formed when you play next to someone. There's communication that's already established. It's much like Olu and Chris Glazer, at center in the right guard spot, and between Glazer and Swoboda. And so It doesn't mean that I'm opposed to having 5 players play the entire game, but rarely do you see an offensive front that can play over 80 plays really, really effectively and really, really aggressively for that amount, at least in relation to my standards. So I would love to see Bissinger and Leach also continue to show up as they are, and that gives us really then about 8 when you look at the different possibilities, players that can rotate through and not suffer anything execution-wise.
Next, we'll go to Gene Long and Hank Kurz.
Hey Bronco, having you played 2 games not on Saturdays, on short weeks, how much of a benefit is that on the back end this week to maybe get those extra few days of rest, just overall, being rested and health of the team?
Yeah, we'll see. I know for the head coach, it feels really good right now on a Monday, and I'll find out from the team, when we see him practice tomorrow, and we're anticipating a healthier and more rested team. And it doesn't always play out like that. Sometimes there's a little bit of a mental sluggishness because it's not playing Thursday or Friday and we've had a few days off. So I've seen both, but usually it ends up being beneficial just for the health part, especially as the week goes on.
It's safe to say that the team today.
Hey Bronco, so I think there's 9 ACC quarterbacks that are starters in the NFL now. Brennan, I don't know that people thought he would be in that realm, but just kind of discuss where he is in terms of his development.
Yeah, he's absolutely in that realm, and he's not kind of on the fringe. He's right in the middle of that realm. And I don't know how to endorse him or share what I think about him any more than I have. Starting from last year to this year, he's really good. And he can make every single throw, and he's tough, and he's competitive, and he's smart, and he's durable. And anyone that doesn't think that, I guess they'll find out the hard way, right? I mean, all you have to do is just watch him play, and the production speaks for itself. So I'm really impressed, and he has tons of room to improve as well. But capability that is right there in every level, and yeah, I really think he's a good player.
So with a lot of these quarterbacks that are really good, like Brett Favre probably thought he could hit a shoebox from 55 yards away, right?
Probably could.
Is Brennan really, he seems really accurate. Is that, how much of that is just Brennan and how much of that is kind of the cockiness of a quarterback?
Yeah, it's both. I wish I could dissect that into the exact percentages, but it's both. And sometimes when you hit shoe boxes from 50 and you do it, let's say 10 times in a row, you actually become pretty confident. And for those of us that can't hit the shoe box from 50 once, we're probably not as confident. So he's done it enough now, and the sample size has become big enough. Not perfect, right? And there's still issues that he can develop and grow in, but there's not this is absolutely not an issue of capability. He can basically hit whatever you put out there, moving or stationary, as many times as you want. And he can do it with people chasing him around.
Thank you.
Yep.
Go back to Mike Barber and Damon for our final 2 questions.
Yeah, Bronco, I know it's not as simple as, checking it off the list, but having won at Miami, not that your road woes are behind you, but was that an important step, and was there something your team takes from that in terms of being able to win on the road going forward?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things where after the game, Jim Daves comes up to me, and it always starts with, "This is the first time since." I've had a lot of the first time sinces in my short time here at Virginia. This is the first time since. This is the first time since. This is the first time since. Or the last time we did that was. This was another first time since. We've really worked hard to become more consistent and better, not only at home but on the road. And to have a tangible result that reflects progress is always important. As you mentioned, doesn't mean we've arrived, but it was accomplished, and that counts. And it counts in any way that you can get it. And so now we use that and build.
So Jim will have to look up the last time you won back-to-back ACC road games.
I usually find out after the fact because I don't know, and then when I'm walking off the field, "Hey coach, this was the last time since." So whenever that happens, we'll talk about it.
Thanks.
Sorry, Jim, I'm good. I just forgot to unraise my hand.
That's not acceptable. You don't get to ask a question next week then, I think is the way that
All right,
works.
I won't even bother putting my camera on next week. Thanks for your time.
All right, this is the first time since 2 years ago we've ended 4 minutes early, so Coach, you're free.
Another first time since. Thanks.